Hello, I'm Richard Raffan. I've just been making some of my tower boxes in Huon Pine, and they've all got suction fit lids, and it's this one that you're going to see in this video. So this blank is Huon Pine. There's a little bit of figure down here which will be down on the base, and there's a little kind of a knot there. So this section is going to be the lid. These boxes are almost all lid and very little base. This is already roughed down, as you can see, between centers, so just get it back there, and that way it'll be more accurately aligned, I hope. All I really need to do at this stage is to, having made sure that is secure in the chuck, just cut off the base section. Should be around there. I'm going to have a flange of probably close on 20 millimeters, maybe even a bit more, somewhere around there. So that will be the base section. Might give myself a little bit more. Just go to there. So I know which the base is the bit with the little conical hole in, and the parting cut is the rough bit. Right, so this is going to be the lid, and I make this exactly as I do a normal lid fit. It's just more lid. So first thing is to true up the outside, 3/4 inch skew, 20 millimeters. And I'm going to hollow out, probably 2 or 3 inches, and use the 1/2 inch spindle gouge for back hollowing initially, and just bore in so I can see how far I am in. So the main thing with the suction fit is that you need the top to be, I wanted the top to be pretty much cylindrical inside. Feed that in. I've gone in about 20 millimeters, and very important to get this cylindrical so it gets checked with the calipers. Give us all a better view. So these are spring, so that when I get inside I can undo springs, so they're now tight, can't pull them out easily. So take the tension off slightly, and then as I pull them out I want to feel an even pull the whole way. And I don't. This is getting slightly tighter. It's getting a bit tighter, so when I pull it out I can see I need to take off about 1/2 millimeter at the rim, nothing at the bottom. Well, the easiest way of doing that is really to hone the side of the tool, or the top in this case. I don't want to grind the side of the tool. Or maybe hone a bit of the side, just get a slight burr up. And I just want to get the corner of the tool into the corner I've just cut, and then ease the tool round, and I want dust nearer the opening than the bottom. There's the dust. And it's not going to need very much. I can feel a slight lump 3/4 of the way down. Now, it doesn't seem like very much, but it makes a huge difference at the next stage if you don't get this bit right. Still a bit too loose at the bottom. I can cope. In fact, a very slight dovetail is desirable, but I don't want very much. Yep, that'll be okay. Teeny bit of sanding will take care of that. Now, need to go down to the bottom, and the only tool I have really with a round nose is this 3/4 inch, which is verging on a bit large to get in there. But anyway, I want it so that when I'm working at centre, the tool's pitched down very slightly, so the rest comes up. About 1/8 of an inch, a couple of millimetres, 3 millimetres. Fingers on the outside, stop the chattering. My hand is near the end of the handle at the moment, so you can see what's happening. I'm much better off holding my hand over the ferrule, and then I've got the handle lined up against my forearm. And I've got much more weight over the handle that way and more control of the tool. I'm not really looking inside. This is, you're better off feeling it. If you start hanging on to the end of the handle and trying to see what's happening, which is difficult anyway because there's dust in there, the slightest catch, you'll get a clip around the ear with the end of the handle. Right, there's a very slight spike in the middle. And now I do look at what I'm doing. Just feel in there and basically just bring the nose of the tool up through centre. And that did it. Right, this is white wood, so, or pale, so mark the depth on the outside before I start sanding. And I will sand with some 180 grit. Huon Pine is very highly prized in Tasmania where it grows. You're no longer allowed to fell the trees. They're all the timber you get now is basically been down for some years or came down with floods, or they get it off beaches and that kind of thing, which you're not allowed to cut it down. And it's a timber which doesn't really rot, so very good for boat building. Some 240 grits. might notice I'm only sanding the inside at the moment, right on the top, not the flange. Got to do the opening. Or not the opening, rather the rim. Now a bit of 320 grit. Now I have a go at the flange. I try not to sand the flange any more than I have to the fitting bit, because if it sands unevenly, then just coming to green, which is 400. If it sands unevenly, that affects the quality of the fit. So Huon Pine is pretty stable anyway, so shouldn't be too much of a problem. Right, this will be finished with beeswax. So I'm just building up, as usual, a nice sticky layer. This sock has a bit of boiled linseed in it as well, which mixes in with the wax. And I'm going to use a stick to get up, just poke it up in there. A bit dramatic. Built up a little bit in the corner there, but that hopefully will come out with the slightly cleaner sock. That's using the divider just to help it get into the corner. Right, so that's the inside done. Next thing is to get as much of the outside shaped as possible whilst it's still in the chuck, and when I can feel how it's going. So 3/4 inch skewer, got a big V groove across there, and then long point down. And I forgot to put a little chamfer just there, because where there is the join, it's always a good idea to have a little bit of detail. So I'll just ease that out into the chuck a bit more. It'd be nice to have it fairly accurate. Whoops. I'll just bring that around. But the whole thing will be, the final shaping is done when the lid's on the base. Peeling cut. grip that lightly in there and then get rid of most of that, and it pays to support that with the tail rest, with the tailstock. My tailstock's kept on a little stand on the windowsill just off behind the lathe. Might as well get rid of a lot of the surplus now. Right. So that's my lid roughed down, and the next stage is to get the base section in. So this now goes right into the chuck. This is going to be the top, but I'd like to get the bottom down as much as possible at this stage. So that goes in there. And little peeling cut just to true up the base. There's a nasty little snick there which sounded like some cross grain coming out. No, it seemed to be okay. There is something did detach itself there. So I will have teeth marks to take off later from here, so I don't need to get that anything other than just trued up at the moment. Just the bevel side in contact with the wood here as the point does the cutting. That's that trued up. That gets sanded later. That's trued, so that goes back into the chuck, should sit square. Now the aim now is to finish the inside, but before I do that, it really pays to establish the diameter within which you can hollow. So just going to eyeball that, just develop a taper here. So I want the lid just to fit over the end of that. It's not quite there yet, so this comes down to a cylinder. Take the tool round a fraction. There's a little burnish mark where the lid fits. That's all I need to know at this stage. Whoa, that's more than far enough. It's going to have a flat bottom inside. Rest could be very slightly up because I only want, remember, the top left side here in contact with the wood. And as usual, I'll have a magnet just to remind myself of where I am in relation to the bottom. And in this case it's probably a good idea just to, since I was quite enthusiastic and I've got a narrow hole in the center there from the gouge, just measure where that is. Oh, it's not quite as bad as I thought. Up to there. Yeah, that should be about right. So you get down there pretty quickly. For these toolboxes, I like a bit of weight in the bottom. I can go down another probably 1/8 of an inch, about 3 millimeters. Do that really just by dropping the handle. That eases the edge into the end grain. And then I can feel a little step with the left corner. And the other thing here is I want this to open out slightly, mostly so that I can rechuck the base easily when I want to. I come to finish off the bottom. That feels pretty good. Need some compressed air. That looks pretty good. Just go over it again very gently. Now the end of my scraper is slightly radiused so that I can't get both corners onto a flat surface at once. Grit, 180 grits. So the next thing is to fit the lid tightly so I can turn the whole of the outside. Now, first thing to do, coming to fit the lid, just peel that back a bit further and clean up the bit which has a bit of wax on it. Ease that onto the end. This has been polished, so that's not too bad, and you can just see a slight burnish mark. That is where it fits. I need to check that this will fit inside. Yes, it will. So, or rather, I need to check that that is not too long for the inside. So I now need to peel that down to the burnish mark. And at this stage I want the headstock end of the flange slightly bigger than the rim. Now I can use the point of the tool with my radius skew. I can just drift the point of the tool in, and I find that's more accurate than trying to make a shear cut. And then at the end I can use the bevel side just to drop that and clean that up. It doesn't want to do it there, so that's got to be done with a shear cut with the point of the skew. So where it rubs and there's a very slight burnish mark is where it fits. A little bit more to come right up at the end, and I do this turning rather than sanding because far too much wood can come off with sanding. And that's, oh, so, yep, it'll look, it'll do it. Right. Bit nerve-wracking at that stage because if you get it just wrong, this can split. Right, so I can now think in terms of peeling that down and starting to shape the whole of the outside. Now the shape I've got here is going to have to account for the chuck marks. So I'm going to come down slightly below that. And there. Just let the wood come to the tool. You're not supposed to be pushing the tool hard into the wood. Now I'm going to make a little V groove here, but it's better to do that with the lid slightly off. Otherwise the cut you're making here can carry through into the lid. The other point is, in this case, that this can come down a little bit more. And that is going to be partly my guide as to how thick the lid is. I'm going to remark where the approximately where the inside is. Yeah, I think that's roughly where I've bored to on the inside. So that can all go on. I'm going to leave a little bead there. That can come up to support this. Now I could just rely on the jam fit, but there's a lot of leverage on a very small fixing, so you're asking an awful lot of your accuracy. Much safer to bring up the tailstock at this stage. Now the only thing concerning me at the moment is a rather irritating little hole which doesn't come out the other side. So I'm just hoping to get rid of it, and if I can't, I'm going to have to tuck it in a detail somewhere. So this can probably come down a bit as far as size goes. Just roughing it out for the moment. Can have a bead or two up here. We'll try that one. My eyesight is the main problem here. And I want the bead sitting on a surface that flows through underneath. So my line now is this curve has to line up with that one. That is going to be adjusted a little bit later. Right, now I've got to start thinking about precisely what shape up here. I always see these as towers as on buildings, so my inspiration has always come from, and the hole has gone, good. Yes, my inspiration comes from medieval towers on churches, or all those wonderful towers on mosques, which I like. And so that's vague recollections of those. Is where I'm coming from here. See how that feels inside. Yep, there's a little bit of weight there, so I've got wood to play with there. That has broken away, which is not a big deal. Very slight bump there, which would probably sand out, but we'll use a low peeling cup. Just taking the corner of the tool into the wood, and that was a very indecisive cut. Indecision all the way. Go down and then come out and then go in. Better. Ooh, it's looking a bit small in there. I wanted something small on top. No, don't really want that too sharp. The wood can't take it. A little collar there. Get the shavings off so I can see what I'm doing. Wish I could see what I'm doing. Yeah, I think it's okay. Now, up at the other end, Now either side of the bead just have a teeny V groove, and that just defines the bead. And this is not somewhere where you kind of roll a bead as you might normally, especially with this wood. Just a little facets, just dab it, and sanding will take care of the rest. Right, drop the rest because it's smaller diameter. And sand that. The 180 grit. Try to keep a hand on it. It's a pretty clean cut down that side, doesn't really need sanding. Pretty good clean cut everywhere really. Wipe that quickly. Any surplus wax comes off with the oily rag first. Right, so we now have it squeezing on, so that's a tight fit, and I'd like a bit of a suction. So I need to take this off the headstock side of that burnish mark and just remove the burnish mark very slightly. And I'm going to do this on this occasion with Huon Pine, which is quite soft, with the 400. And it's very easy to take off too much. But the idea is to have, this is very slightly dovetailed, slightly wider at the back than at the rim. So the idea is to have the slightly tighter rim going over the widest section there, and then getting on to a slightly narrower section. So this is essentially barreled, although you'll hardly see it on this scale. Just wants to pop out a bit. I just want a bit more off right in there, and I'm going to come back to the apricot, to the 320. Slightly, but no, it'll be fine when it's standing upright. Yep. Good, so the lid fits. Now I can move the base out, or turn it around to finish it off. So I'm just going to make a chuck for that. I'll turn it around. And meanwhile we can see the hole. box there. This can even come down a fraction. I have a number of little blocks which I can turn down to fit as required. It's an old branch of something or other, don't know what. So this gets fitted just as I fitted the lid to the base. Undercut that very slightly. Oh, smells like olive, this chuck. Right, good. And it'd be nice to get at the whole of the flange, so all I have to do is to take this shoulder down, just so I've got a little bit of a shoulder left. And I shall also bring up something to support the base, which in this case is going to be a disc of MDF. Shorter rest means I can move the whole rest assembly in. Move that in. And the idea is that that cone does not go through the MDF. No, good. So, change of angle for the camera I hope means less interaction with the camera from me. Right, I'm just going to peel down the MDF a bit, with all that. Foul stuff. Tighten up the tail stender so that MDF stops spinning. So it's just a question of getting rid of that little ridge, and let's take all this up. No, I'll do that first, then take that apart and see how it looks on the with the lid on top. Oh, I shouldn't have interrupted everything. That's going quite well there. Get a smaller bit, which I should have had in the first place, I think. Now the trouble here is with a very thin base, if you put any pressure with the tailstock, you're through the bottom, because the end grain is short and not as strong as cross grain. It's amazing when your workflow gets just thrown out a bit. Have a little bit of relief and just see how the whole thing's looking. Yep, I can lose a teeny bit here. In fact, this time I'm going to use a hardwood disc, which is a bit smaller than the diameter I'm cutting, and that should do the job. And I'm also going to sharpen the skew. This is a peeling cut for greater accuracy, and the fact that I'm wimping out on making a shear cut. Right, little chamfer on the bottom, and then I need to do the actual base. Now, if you remember, I've already done the actual base, but it would be nice to have just a little bit of decoration on the bottom to show that it was turned. So at the very minimum, it gets a couple of grooves. Probably another one out there. And go through the same grits again. Right, and a huge sigh of relief that that's done without any major mishaps.